All right, Coach Kyle Turri from Hobart. Thank you very much for joining. It's a pleasure to have you after we've obviously known each other for probably 20 years or so now.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ryan. It's been a while. Growing up in West Islip, you and Justin watching you guys. I think I was the manager for you guys up until like eighth grade for the varsity team. So obviously, I've gotten to know you pretty well over the past couple of years.
Yep, always involved. So I guess we'll jump into that because obviously I know your story, but a lot of people that are watching don't. So you grew up in a lacrosse family. You kind of hit on it. I played for your dad growing up. I played with one of your brothers for a long time. So talk us through growing up in a lacrosse family, your dad being a coach, and then how that kind of encouraged you to get into coaching and decide that as a career path.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was surrounded by it. It was my entire life, athletics in general, but being from a lacrosse town and a lacrosse family, I just always had a stick in my hands. And, like I said before, I was the manager for the varsity lacrosse team from probably first grade up until eighth grade. And then, as I started playing on the team, it was just, I was always with my dad, always seeing him coaching and kind of led me and obviously my brother Justin as well to get into, we call it the family business, but, it was something that it just clicked for me. It was something I really enjoyed, not only the sport, but my dad was also a phys ed teacher. So teaching and helping out young kids, it was something I was a part of from the very beginning.
So I always say that I think your dad is the best coach I've ever had, and the thing that always stood out to me was obviously we all talk about his level of intensity and how intense he was on the sidelines and his approach, but even more so than that, and something that I think I've always tried to carry with me when I coach is his attention to detail. Like everything we did, I mean, he was always so well prepared. He thought about things in a different way with how we played a fast break, something simple as a fast break, or how we approach different situations. Uh, so, what are the two or three things that you took from him? Obviously, he's your dad, but he is also one of the best coaches that a lot of people. I mean, he built West Islip Lacrosse along with Scott Craig and the youth organization and so many people. But he was, from a defensive perspective, for years had the best defense on all of Long Island and in all of New York State lacrosse. So, what are the two or three things that you picked up from him along the way?
Oh, I think the one thing was, like you said, the attention to detail. As a high school coach, where you're not really getting paid too much to do it, it was something that he was so passionate about that I think before a lot of high school coaches, nowadays are watching film. He was down in the phys ed office with the old videotape and the old TV watching film with us by himself. It was just something that he loved, and he was something really passionate about it. But I think the more important thing was just the relationships that he developed with those guys. And I think myself, Justin, Wade, our other brother, growing up, and him just knowing all of these kids forever, it was something that was a little easy for him, but he was able to turn the knob and turn the switch on and off really well, in terms of, like you said, being very intense and getting after you and raising his voice just a little bit, but after it circling back and trying to joke around and developing that relationship afterwards so that you knew where he was coming from and how much he cared.
Yeah, that was always the best part. Like he would chew you out on for something wrong. It was you were always at fault when he yelled at you. It was never. It wasn't like he was unfair, but he would chew you out at a practice on a Wednesday, and then Thursday morning he'd be in playing badminton or volleyball or basketball or something against you in gym class. So I agree. It was definitely a skill set and unique in how he did it. And I think I'm with you. Like I learned again the attention to detail and then that ability to be intense and turn it on and off. You go on to have a great career at Duke, and then you get into the coaching world. So you started at Ohio State. I guess talk to us about that decision to get into coaching, starting at Ohio State, and then that path to where you are today.
Well, I think my college experience kind of led me towards it, just having the background initially, just being from that type of family. But it really started to it was always in the back of my head, but my senior year, I got injured with a couple concussions, and I wasn't able to play anymore. And I started just helping out. Matt Danowski would have me try to implement the scout man down group to get the man up ready for a Saturday game. So just starting things like that, I always tried to participate in as many camps and work as many camps as possible. And it was just something I found I loved, teaching kids how to play lacrosse. And getting kids to, experience what I experienced. So it was a big factor for me. I spoke with Coach Shanowski, late that spring, and said that I wanted to get into it, and he couldn't have been more pumped, and pointed me to the resources, and I ended up speaking with Brad Ross, who was an assistant at Ohio State, who played for Duke and was really close with my brother, and speaking to him about Ohio State, and that opportunity opened up, and I went out and volunteered at Ohio State. I'd never been in Columbus before. Didn't really know anyone except for Brad and the staff initially, and it was a really cool experience going out there. See a program, a different program than what I had experienced, and just get a different perspective. So it was a great year and a great first experience, and learning a ton from Coach Myers, Jamison Kester, who just took the job at Hopkins, Brad being a great resource as well.
So that's the small world. So we've talked to Travis Crane, who actually ends up replacing you as the volunteer at Ohio State after you leave. But you talk about Coach Myers, who's done an incredible job at Ohio State. Then Brad Ross, who Justin played with, and you've obviously known for a long time, who makes his move to Navy. And then Jamison Kester, like you said, who went from Ohio State to, I think, UMBC, was right after Ohio State, and then obviously to Johns Hopkins most recently. So then that path to Hobart. So you do your volunteer year at Ohio State, and you make your way to Hobart in upstate New York, and you've been there ever since, running the defense. Talk to us about what is a day in the life like for Hobart. I mean, our kids in Charlotte and in non-Hotbed areas aren't too familiar with a school like Hobart in upstate New York. So I guess talk to us about your first day on campus there, coming from Duke and being where you were from West Islip, Long Island. What drew you to Hobart? What makes that a special place for you guys and your players?
Well, I think first, the first person I met was my current boss, Coach Raymond, and he made it a very welcoming experience, and somebody that I could tell was really passionate and really connected with our guys. He's still younger in the profession compared to a lot of head coaches, and has been doing this thing for 7-8 years now, but he's got a great connection with our guys, and a great relationship and balance between a leader and a friend. So just the resources in that way. But I think I saw a lot of different experiences from Hobart when I first stepped on campus. It kind of reminded me of the Duke campus a little bit, a little bit smaller, a little different from Ohio State, where you walk and you see just these buildings everywhere, and it's a huge campus with the huge football program. And then I go to this school, a quick stop at Binghamton, where, a lot of Long Island guys that I knew just growing up, and it hit home for me. I think it was 75% of our roster was Long Island guys, so that made me very comfortable there. And moving a little bit more upstate to Hobart, it was a great opportunity. It was a campus that I felt really home on, a really tight knit community. It's not a big city. It's nice on a lake. It's a little spread out, and it's on the smaller side, which is really cool because you can get to know everybody. You have great relationships with everybody in the athletic department and the school in general, and all of our guys know a lot of the students and a lot of the population, and have become friends with the soccer team, the hockey team, and all these different programs.
Yeah, you and I talked about it a little bit just before we hit record on this, of just how tight-knit that community is, and specifically within the athletic department, and just the draw of campus, of how many people are athletes and how everyone's kind of rooting for each other in the different sports. This year was obviously different. So you have your players, and then obviously the season's cut short because of COVID-19. What was that day like when you guys found out? And I think, what has been the atmosphere since? And now we're on the other side of Memorial Day, so it's a little bit easier. But I guess those weeks from finding out that the season's going to be canceled through Memorial Day, I guess, how did you handle that with your team? And then what was that moment like when you guys found out the season was canceled?
Well, I think it was a huge bummer. It's not only our staff, our players, but the whole lacrosse community. I think everyone was a little saddened by it, and specifically our group. It felt like we had something good going, after 4 or 5 games, and we felt like we had good momentum, and we're in a really good spot to just keep getting better. So it was a little stunning, a little sad at the beginning, but we gave the guys a day or two to feel sorry and feel a little bit bad, and then we kind of took the next week to refocus and just see how we can get better. How are we going to get better during this time, and how can we, continue to preach our values, our morals within our team culture, get better physically. And we just created a lot of different areas where, it was Zoom meetings, small group film sessions. We tried to get really unique. We actually had our guys submit weekly videos, and there was a theme each week. So there was one week where we wanted to see who could build the best fort, with their couch cushions and blankets and lacrosse sticks in their basement or their living room. We had a cooking competition where some guys weren't great. I think a couple heated some leftovers up, but there was a couple guys who created just these full-fledged meals that we actually posted one of them to our Instagram. But it was pretty cool, and just some opportunities and some avenues for guys to look into each other's lives a little bit more and get to know their teammates, which we do plenty of, but them being at their homes and their houses and where they grew up, just gave us more opportunity to do so.
Yeah, it takes them out of that bubble a little bit. So when you're on campus, we call it in the bubble, where you're like just with the guys from your team, and obviously on campus in a college environment. Like you said, this takes you out of that bubble and shows guys kind of a different part of your life that we admittedly, having gone through it, you meet guys' families when they come in for games, but that's kind of the extent of it. They don't.
Yeah, it's cool how much you can learn about somebody else, even though you may live with a couple guys and still not know certain things about their life, and just trying to open up those doors and create those relationships even more.
Yeah. So I think the next layer of that COVID-19 impact and how it impacted your season is that extra year of eligibility. So the NCAA gives all these guys an extra year of eligibility if you're on the team this year. I think it's a two-part question. I think the first part is, how is that going to impact your team in 2021 and beyond from the guys that are in the locker room today? And I guess, how do you view it impacting college lacrosse in general?
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting in all different situations. I think every school is handling it or able to handle it differently. We were lucky enough where a bunch of our seniors that got their extra year of eligibility decided that they wanted to come back, and we gave it. There were only 9 of them, so it made it a little bit easier. But we get, right at the beginning, once the rule passed, we made it available to all of them, and a couple guys couldn't work it out, but 6 out of the 9 decided that they wanted to come back, and really felt like we had something good going, and that they really felt a connection with our team and wanted one last shot at it. So next year we'll have a little bit bigger of a roster, and then from the years, next year, the year after that, I think it's a wait and see kind of thing. We're not gonna wait until next spring to figure out the next group of guys, and we'll start to figure out who may want to make it work, and whether it's extending credits or whatever it is. We don't have a graduate school, so it would be extending credits, picking up a double major, whatever it is. I think we'll see, and I think a lot of people are focused on that. How do they manage a roster size? But give this year that the players deserve. They work hard, and to be cut a year short or a half a year short is something that obviously isn't great. So we're going to learn on the fly here.
Yeah, I think that's the boat that everybody's in. It's like it's going to impact everybody differently, and I think like everything in life, it's like you don't know the answer today, so let's just figure it out kind of as we go through it. I think the big part of it that a lot of younger guys are concerned about is the recruiting impact. So you said 6 of your guys are coming back. How do you see it impacting the way you approach 2021 recruits, 2022 recruits, and beyond?
Well, I don't really see it affecting us too much. I think our 21 class was going to be a little bit smaller in nature, just based on our recruiting cycles and the surrounding classes anyway. But the 22s, the 23s, I think are going to be fairly normal for us and for a lot of schools. I think, we can't plan for, 6 or 7 guys coming back each year and then have a, recruit only a class of 8 guys each year and end up with a roster of 32 once the cycle is done. I think we have to kind of go as business as usual, and the process is going to just be a little bit different for the 21s. Whether it's we're watching a little bit more film of some practices in August or September or October, or we're able to recruit in November or into the winter months and see them play live and in person. I think it's just going to be a little bit different for these next two classes, the 21s, 22s. But I was thinking about it the other day and just researching out of my own curiosity in terms of football players, where I think it's up to like 25, 30% of those guys are waiting till that second signing period in January of their senior year anyway. So I really think that kids are starting to worry a little bit where they really don't need to. You know, the process is going to be extended. You're going to have opportunities, and you know, I think it's what all the college coaches want, the most mature student athlete and the most mature kids. So I think it'll work out in the end.
Yeah, it's like you get the most we laugh because like the 21, 22 classes are going to be the most well-researched classes that have ever come through the recruiting process. Just because everybody's time on their hands. And then I think the other part, like you said, is it's a more mature player. It's a player that's been able to do more homework. It's a deeper relationship with the coaches that they eventually commit to, which is a positive down the road. And I think the other thing we've tried to remind so many guys, and you hit on it, is it's not like there are missed opportunities. It is that everyone's on hold. So it's not like these kids over here are getting recruited and you're missing out on it. It is the whole world is on hold. So those opportunities are still there. It's just later than you probably originally expected.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think staying on that recruiting process, because I think so many kids are being impacted by it. How do you guys approach recruiting? So, you know, when you guys sit down at the beginning of the process, what are kind of those key things that you're going to be looking for? And then how do you go from, we have this list of, you know, or we're going to go to these tournaments with thousands of kids. How do you start to think about building that list of players you're going to evaluate, the evaluation process, and then onto the visit, offer, commitment process?
Well, I think for our program, we don't want to recruit. We want to make the experience, the recruiting relationship as personal as possible. So we start out with, you know, a recruiting cycle and a recruiting class and just start to gather info, whether it's resources like yourself reaching out about somebody, a student athlete himself sending a video before we can communicate to him, or just going out onto the field and seeing somebody and something sparks some interest. But I would say for us, we don't like to have a huge list. We don't want hundreds and hundreds of names on our list because it makes it really difficult to create a relationship with that kid, you know. And I think we want to make sure that we're making the right decision and that the student athlete is making the right decision too. And the way to do that is get to know him as much as possible. So we like to rotate which coach is communicating with different kids so that they experience every single coach. We like to see kids play a lot. You know, we don't want to. Yeah, it's a lot of guys will play in front of us either at a camp or, you know, at a tournament or something, and we'll see them for a game or two games, and then they want an answer, and we're like, we just want to keep seeing you play. You know, we want to see how you develop and how you continue to improve, and that's a big focus for us, is having a small list of guys where we could put a lot of attention on, you know, and really get to know Billy or Sam or whoever it is and know him exactly, so that when we do get to that process, we can feel really comfortable that this is a really good fit for us and for him.
Yeah, that's been a common theme too. Like guys want to see people numerous times. It's not maybe you had a great event one weekend or maybe you had a bad event one weekend. Coaches want to see you 2 or 3 times to see that consistency and kind of make a more full evaluation. Now, what are those 2 or 3 things? You keep a small list, you want to build deep relationships, but there are those 2 or 3 things that are really important to you guys. When you get to a field, you know, what are those boxes that you have to check before you proceed in the recruiting process with a kid?
Well, I think the obvious ones being the physical characteristics and looking for athleticism, stick skills, but all the intangibles are kind of what separates the next guy. And, you know, I think a big focus for me is who is really enjoying being out there, you know, who is really enjoying his team's success and who really loves playing lacrosse. You know, I really enjoy kind of staying on a field in between games and watching warm-ups and see, you can figure out who this is really important to, you know, who's mentally preparing for that game in a lot of different ways. Some guys banging their heads against something, some guys, you know, they have the music out on the field, somebody has a jam box or something and they're blasting music and it's awesome, and you can see who's really having fun and who is just putting a lot of the pressure of getting recruiting on them, where it's taking away from their enjoyment of playing this game, and I think that's one thing. And then the other is being a great teammate. I think it's a cliche, but it really is one of the most important things. Like, what players are so excited about their teammates scoring goals rather than what they did? And it kind of gets lost in terms of all these club games where there's 4 or 5 games a weekend, but who's really excited about winning? Who's excited about not them scoring 3 goals, but their team winning that 8 a.m. game on a Sunday where you just played 3 or 4 games the day before. So I think those are a lot of coaches, myself, and a lot of others will tell you that those are huge factors.
Yeah, that's you said it. Like in the club world, we were playing 5 games a weekend, and some of the sometimes there's not even playoffs, or you're not playing for anything. It takes a special person to get excited for every goal and for every big play and every big stop on defense. But those are the things that I think we're looking for, is like all the stuff, the intangibles that you said, the competitiveness, being a good teammate, stuff like we're constantly trying to emphasize that guys do, because when you're with a guy for 200, 250 days a year, or whatever it works out to be, that stuff makes a huge difference.
Definitely.
What I think we've talked about, the recruiting process. We've talked about how you evaluate players. When you go through that process and you make that offer to guys, what are the guys that come to campus and have a ton of success? What are they doing? So what allows them to be successful once they get on campus?
Well, I think the probably 2 or 3 biggest things. One being the guys who don't wait, who don't feel like they are, a freshman and have to kind of sit behind someone. The guys who aren't afraid to go out and get extra reps right away, whether it's out on the field or in the classroom. The guys who don't wait to go and meet with a professor or get their study hall hours in. The guys who are really proactive are the very successful ones early on. I think there's countless stories on every single team of guys that don't play for 3 years, and their senior year, they realize their time's almost up. So they go out and they get a couple extra shots, and they get a couple extra ground balls, approaches, whatever it is. And then they break out their senior year. And we had an example a couple of years ago, an LSM who didn't play for 3 years. And he said it in a speech to our team. He's like, I don't know why I waited till senior year. It kind of just hit me. And he wanted to communicate to all of our younger guys, our freshmen, our sophomores, to not wait, and he became a starting LSM for our team last year. And actually at the end of the year, with an injury, he became a 60-minute close D guy for us after not, spending 3 years on the bench. So I think that's a big thing. And the other thing is just embracing being a little uncomfortable, embracing that you aren't the most experienced on the team, and that some guys know a little bit more about things. Embrace being in the weight room, even if it is uncomfortable. I can remember my freshman year. I think I was 6'3" and 150 pounds. So being in the weight room was definitely uncomfortable. And that whole first semester, I was sitting there looking around, and I was a little embarrassed just because I couldn't do some of the things that these seniors were doing. We spoke about Mike Manley, before we started recording here. He was squatting, benching, 400 or 500 pounds, and I don't think I could get the bar off of my chest. So there's just embracing the discomfort, embracing that stuff, because if you shy away from it, you're just not going to learn, and you're not going to get better.
Yeah, I was with one of my guys who's going to play college lacrosse over the weekend. That's one of the things. Like, it's okay as a freshman that you're going to struggle with things. Like it was a defenseman. We're talking about covering, like if you're an 18-year-old on campus and you're trying to cover a 21, 22-year-old at 5x5, it's okay if you struggle at first. Like, it's going to be hard. And you said it, like there's so much time in the weight room. And as long as you embrace it and understand that you have to put in the work to get better, you'll be in good shape. But that adversity is most certainly going to hit when you're, like you said, an 18, 19-year-old kid stepping onto a college campus for the first time.
Definitely.
What advice? So we talked about those guys on campus, but there's obviously the younger players too that aspire to be college lacrosse players one day. And we talked about it at the beginning. You come from a lacrosse family. We both came from a very strong lacrosse town. You've played in national championship games. You've won gold medals. You've been part of the most successful lacrosse programs in the country and the world. What type of advice would you give to a 10-year-old, a 13-year-old, a 14-year-old that would allow them to have success and eventually get to that level that you were able to reach?
I think the number one thing, and I touched a little bit on it before, is just loving what you're doing. You know, loving the sport, and so many kids are starting at kindergarten, second, third grade. They're playing, and I feel like the training, the club, like everything is being pushed, early and earlier. By the time somebody becomes a freshman in college, it just becomes, unenjoyable, at that point. So finding ways to make this thing enjoyable, whether it's maybe taking one tournament off, or if whether you can be a goalie and play attack for a Sunday game or something like that. Figuring out ways to make this thing a little bit more enjoyable, and really love playing the game every single time you step out on the field. I think if you're going and dreading going to a tournament or dreading going to a practice, then you're playing a little too much, and it goes along with the whole thing where every college coach will tell you to play other sports, to play basketball, to play football, to play soccer, whatever it is. Give yourself some of these different experiences, and the second you step back onto the lacrosse field, it's just going to be so refreshing for you. I can remember we were in middle school ball, and we played Sunday leagues. Coach Tom Federico, a big figure in West Islip. I wouldn't play goalie. I would play attack in Sunday leagues. And then we got back during the week, and I was in the net. But it just gave me opportunity to experience new things that I think down the line helped me out a ton. Picking up ground balls, handling the ball, clearing it, all these things, playing extra sports will help down the line.
Yeah, I can attest to it. You're obviously a good basketball player. You played off. I mean, we were growing up when you were little for the first time. You were always we never saw you playing goalie. Like when Justin and I were running around and doing day camps and stuff, you were always playing in the field. And then all of a sudden, you obviously grew up to be a very good goalie down the road. But to kind of hit on what you're saying, it was like so much of it was just having fun playing other positions, and it allowed you to have so much success down the road.
Absolutely.
All right, man. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. It was great to catch up, and I know that our parents are really going to enjoy kind of hearing your process and hearing your experience, and then obviously learning about kind of what you guys look for at Hobart.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It was great catching up.
All right. Hopefully we're on the field together soon with the back to a normal environment in the next couple of weeks.
Yes, hopefully.